Today's daily dose of math is a second example of graphing the pizza function, the inverse function, using a table of values. As a reminder, we used a table of values to graph this pizza function where our k value is 72. We plug values into the function where all we have to do is divide, and we're able to fill up our table. Notice how I avoided decimals by choosing numbers that are integer factors of 72. And we discovered that if we find the square root of 72, we find a useful point. That one had decimals this time. Now let's look at the current example. This time we're graphing a function that's not about pizza. I call it the pizza function anyway. This inverse function is about sharing the cost of a bus to go to some sort of event. We know that the bus costs $400, and we're going to split the cost among all of the passengers. So we define x as our number of passengers, y will be our cost per person, and our k is 400. Right away, I'm going to square root my k. The square root of 400 is 20. This time I got an integer, and that means I have a useful point. The point 2020 will be on my curve. In order to fit the large numbers that I'm going to get, I scaled so that every square on the graph paper represents 10 units. And then I start dividing into 400 in order to fill in a table of values. For instance, if x is 40, y is 400 divided by 40, so y is 10. This allows me to fill in a table of values quite quickly, and then I can start putting the points from that table of values onto my graph, and we can see how our square root point 2020 does fit very nicely along a curve that we can imagine running between these points. One thing to notice is this point here, where x is 2 and y is 200, it seems to be touching the y-axis, but it isn't. We do not have a point where x is equal to 0, because that would involve dividing by 0, which is impossible. We would get an undefined answer. So we can see by the shape of our curve that with the inverse function, the pizza function, our curve keeps on approaching both axes, but never actually touches them. This is an example of graphing the pizza function. It is today's daily dose of math. Please like, subscribe, and share.